Hi, I'm Femi OK.
And I'm Malika Bilal.
Why are all-male panels still a thing? Today we discuss an issue that is near and dear to our hearts, the lack of women in media.
If this is an issue that's important to you, let us know how it affects your life. Tweet us or join our live YouTube chat, and you too could be in the stream.
So we have Manferences, Himposiums, Manels. When it comes to speaking engagements, men continue to outnumber women by a large margin. In the media world, the same rules apply. But have you noticed, over the past couple of years, the stream has made a concerted effort to diversify our guest panels?
Look at this wall. It took hundreds of extra hours of researching, networking, and creative thinking. But that work has paid off. In 2017, only 43% of our guests were women. In 2018, we made an intentional effort to reach out to more female guests and reach gender parity. Now in 2019, we end the year with more female experts than male ones. Our executive producer, Barry Malone, launched our Gender Balance Initiative. Here's what he had to say about the effort.
There's very important reasons for us to do this. Representation is important, and it's important that the media, whether it's the Stream or Al Jazeera English or any other media organization, it's important that we reflect the societies in which we operate. And if you have gender imbalanced newsroom, whether that's behind the scenes, if you're putting out gender imbalanced shows, then you're going to end up with skewed conversations that don't reflect the society around you. And honestly, that's just not good enough for the media. You know, just try and improve. You know, just start tomorrow and take tomorrow's show or tomorrow's newspaper article or whatever it is that you produce, and just make that extra effort to produce more women or to book more women. And what you'll find is, hopefully what we found is that the numbers keep rising. And I think that then, you know, what happened to us is we got to a comfortable enough place to say our pledge to you now, as the Stream, is that we will never pass another year with less than 50% women as our guests.
Phew. Okay, so joining us in our studio to discuss why inclusiveness and representations matter, ELISA MUNOZ. ELISA is the Executive Director of the International Women's Media Foundation, the IWMF. The Washington, D.C.-based group provides training, tools and assistance to female journalists across the world. ELISA, how often have you heard a program or a media organization say, we pledge, we are going to have 50-50 in terms of gender equality? When was the last time you heard that?
I don't think I've ever heard a pledge to reach 50-50 gender parity in the news media. I think there are promises to do better and to try really hard, but most media organizations don't put the work behind that promise.
So your organization, the International Women's Media Foundation, was founded 30 years ago, about. And I wanted to bring this up to see what's changed since then. This is a tweet we got from Elif, who says, is it because there is still that mindset that men know better with certain areas of discussion, like politics, economics, and war? But if the topic was on fashion, cooking, children, it is likely women who would be picked to discuss that. Is that why we see the Manels and the conferences with all men and the TV shows with all men panels? Is this part of the problem, and has that changed over the years?
Well, I think it's a perception that is fed by the media, and then it compounds, and there's nothing challenging our societal biases. So if you have a news media that is continually putting women forth as only being experts in fashion and cooking and childcare, then that is the perception, and those unconscious biases are reinforced by the individuals who make up most of the news media, who are men, white men.
How do you break through that? What do you do? That's something that your organization has been trying to do for a long time.
Yeah, there are a couple of ways that I think you can challenge that, and one is the counting, and that is just really, in my opinion, the only way that you can do better. If you're not counting on a weekly basis, on a monthly basis, then you're not going to change, because how can you change your bias if you don't even know that you have it? Some people don't know that they have it. And then really women just aren't giving the same opportunities as men in the journalism profession. So our organization also tries to challenge that barrier that they face and provide opportunities that will help them be noticed, help them get promotions, help them get those gigs that they're not getting in mainstream media.
I wanted to share a video comment we got from a reporter out of Hong Kong. This is Mary Hugh. This is what she told this stream.
I think gender parity is important on media panels, but more broadly in media representation in general, because only with diversity can we really try and get closer to fully capturing the complexities of the world around us. Not hearing from a certain segment of society means that we really risk missing out on an entire chunk of the narrative. So it's not just gender parity that we should be aiming for, it's diversity of all kinds, ethnicity, religion, political leanings, and the like.
So she says this is beyond just gender, but of course you also have some people who say people should be picked based on their merit, based on their experience. What do you say to them?
I reject the notion that you have to be neutral when you're looking for experts. I think that we have to correct historical wrongs and historical misperceptions. And the only way to do that is to go out of your way and find the people who aren't being put in front of you on a silver platter. I mean, it takes a little work to find the right person, but the media is just failing if it is not actually representing the society that it's supposed to be reporting on.
ELISA, one of the things that our team found was a little piece of video to show you how do you put together a gender balance panel, and they give you very concrete tips. Let's have a look. So easy, just points there. You do this, you do this, you do this, you do this, and also ask women.
Right.
One tip for you before you go would be what?
Well, I think that you also have to count on men to step up to the plate and not participate in Manels. And there are huge movements in Europe where they are the ones taking it on themselves and they say, I'm not participating on a Manel, or how many women did you call before you called me? So, I mean, we cannot fight this battle alone.
Thank you. Thank you for joining us.
Appreciate it. Thank you so much. So important.
Now, this topic is not just about women. Men also lament the lack of diversity in media and on panels. Here's what one member of our community, Srinivasan, had to say.
I'm coming to you now from New Delhi, India, land of the all-male panels on television, at conferences, and elsewhere. I not only do not speak on all-male panels, I don't attend all-male panels. The reason is that they are discriminatory and don't give people a chance to hear other points of view. Those of us who are blessed to have a chance to speak have an obligation to ask who else is speaking and suggest women, people of color, and other minorities, and give them a chance to participate in the speaking opportunities that we get. Only if all of us do that can we make a change.
Some of our interview producers are now joining us to discuss the stream's effort to feature more women on our program. Welcome Zuleika Hussain, who has been with the show since it launched in 2011. SONIA BHAGAT, who can find qualified women to talk about anything from AK-47s to Puerto Rican politics. And Anade Never Give Up Satuma. I know, because I sit next to her.
And also we have Alex Sarabia. She booked the guest for today's show. So she is back there in the control room. Alex, stand up, take a bow. Thank you very much. This was an easy book for Alex, I'm going to say, all right? This was an easy book. But it's not that easy. Ladies, can you tell us your worst moment ever of guest booking, trying to get the right guest? Anade, you start.
So I was trying to book a show about safety for journalists in Europe, and particularly about the case of a journalist in Malta. Her name's Daphne, and she was was murdered, and we were just talking about journalism, particularly women, and every organization I called recommended a male expert to be on the show. So I would like go through everyone's list of employees and pick out the women, and they'd keep giving me their male bosses. And so we went on air, unfortunately, it's one of my saddest moments, with an all-white male panel. And then we had a guest who I had emailed to be on the show who didn't respond, tweet in about how it was an all-male panel talking about women's security and journalism. And they were so sad, and it was just so heartbreaking. But
we were sadder in our meetings, and we have our meetings, when we don't have diversity. You can tell we're just walking around the newsroom, just so upset that we failed at that one time. Zuleika.
Absolutely. We've definitely had Manels over the course of the last 10 years. I remember when we started the stream show in 2011, we did a show on domestic drones rising, and it was a panel with a total of 5 males, I think, including the 2 hosts. Both of them were male at the time. And so that's a big change that we have 2 women hosting this show. But we've definitely changed. And because our premise from the very beginning was that we will reflect the societies, the underrepresented societies that needed to be on air. And I think the power of the democratizing of social media that brings up representation. I think we as gatekeepers have to be involved.
So you just saw that on your screen there, the show that she was talking about, but I want to peek in just a little closer on my laptop here. Domestic drones on the rise. You have a drone on the table. Josh Rushing was the guest. He's also an Al Jazeera correspondent. Ahmed Shahabuddin, a former host of the show. So I get what you're saying there. But we got a comment from someone on YouTube that I want to share. This person says, "You just created an imbalance by exceeding men entirely." I think they mean that we left men out of today's show. Sonia, it is not easy to talk about ourselves. And even when this show was pitched in our planning meeting, I think people felt uncomfortable about it. How did you feel about it? And why do you think it's important for you to have come on the show?
Yeah, I think it's important what we're doing. I mean, the fact is that there are a lot of women in leadership positions. There are a lot of women experts out there, but unfortunately, they don't get the exposure that their male counterparts do. So it's important that we talk about the challenges that we face in trying to find those voices. So, for instance, in a recent show that I did, we were talking about the legacy of the AK-47. And as you can imagine, all the experts that I found on that show were predominantly white male. And so I had to become creative and think of a way to get a woman voice on there. And I ended up finding a journalist, thankfully, who reported on the arms trade. And the thing is, she brought a depth and a nuance to the conversation that I don't think would have been there had we not brought her on. So it ended up being a success in the end.
Right, and I think a lot of times it's not just us out there just searching for the voices. It's about when we did the show on Black Muslim poetry, I remember one of our guests that we really wanted, Tariq Toure, he was like, no, I think you should get this person, and she's a woman and she's amazing, and she's this 2-time Grand Youth Slam champion, and we had her on, Sadia Bashir, she was excellent. And so a lot of times it's about woke people who are also allies in this. It's not just about us getting the voices, but when we have the right mindset, it's always possible.
I'm wondering about the guests, from the guest perspective, when they see the diversity on the show. What have been the responses that you've got back?
I mean, when it comes to realizing, I think as people of color, particularly in our newsroom, we're so sensitive to voices that are marginalized. And so I'm very honest when it comes to guests when they're typically white men. And I'm like, we are very passionate about reserving a seat at our table for women. And so for that reason, we're going to fill the spot with a woman. Ideally a woman of color. And most times when I say that to a white man, they have nothing to say back. Or they're like, yeah, we agree. And so very rarely.
So you say that so easily. I sit next to you, as I mentioned, and I cringe myself when I hear you do it because I think, oh, this is so, what are they going to say? Talk us through your process. Let the audiences know exactly what do you tell people when they suggest a name that's not the name you want?
I just say it's important to the stream that we reserve a seat at the table for women of color, particularly in voices where women, in spaces and conversations when women are typically marginalized. I don't know if people don't like to respond to me because I'm a black woman as well.
Memorize that script.
Yeah, I say it to people. Yeah, you gotta know.
You have to know.
But has anyone reacted in an uncomfortable way back to that? Because you're basically dropping them. It's like, we don't want you, we want someone else.
Oh yeah. I mean, I've had guests who seem very offended when I'm like, listen, you're great, you'd be great for this show, but I need a woman voice on this program. And I will say, over the years, that's happened less and less. So more often than not, when I say to people, I appreciate you offering up yourself as a guest, but I really need a woman, they say to me, hey, that's really refreshing. Like, I really appreciate that you care about that, and I care about that too, and let me help you out. Let me connect you to some voices of women.
And it's not just women, right? It's also like other marginalized communities, indigenous voices, disabilities communities. Every single group that we're going after, we're like very adamantly saying, no, this is the person that we want and not whoever we're talking to on the phone.
And what that is really about lived experience. We're looking for somebody who's in the heart of the story and from the story. Like the whole point of our show is that anybody can speak to the officials making policy about their countries and their conversations. And so we had a show about Puerto Rico. Sonia actually line produced that, and it was about the governor releasing homophobic and anti-LGBTQ texts and tweets or got leaked, and we refused to have the show without an Afro-Latina who recognized themselves an LGBT community member. And so it's just giving a voice to the people who are at the heart of the story as well.
So we got this tweet in from a viewer. She's watching now, Miriam on Twitter. I'll get this to you, Zuleika. She says, you ladies are phenomenal. So pats on the back all around. Still, I sometimes question the gender focus because it can mean quota over quality. Do you think in your booking that that is true for you? Do you think sometimes you sacrifice quality because you want that person represented?
That has never happened. I mean, if you're looking hard enough,
happened.
Never.
This is the truth circle.
I am honest here. Like it's never a situation where this guest maybe a speaking style is different because we're also looking for good TV material. But that doesn't mean that we're going to say this person doesn't really know that much about this subject, but we're still going to have her because female quota. No,
But it happens with guys all the time, right? Yeah. Guys like, I know a little bit, I can be the expert.
See, this is the thing.
Yeah.
And completely always.
Sorry, guys.
And half the problem is, I find the only guests that come back to me and go, I don't know if I'm qualified for this show, are women. And you almost have to convince women that they're qualified to be what they already are. And that's the thing, this fallacy of women not being experts in their field, that's not real. Like if you look for a woman, you'll find them. No matter what topic we've ever covered, it's not real.
And to be honest, like when we're talking about these kinds of voices being represented, we're just looking at our own newsroom. Our team, and I tell this all the time, is that it's the UN. Our entire team is majority women.
I'm so glad you said that. Keep talking. I'm going to show pictures through the ages of our teams. Keep talking. Keep talking.
I mean, when I look at me, I'm a brown, Urdu-speaking, Indian, American, Shia, Muslim. How many more hyphenations can we put into one person here? And literally, that's every single person on our team is like a different voice. And when we're hiring, and a great job with our team leadership, that they always are looking to hire such a diverse panel.
Give that woman a promotion.
And throughout the years on this team, I mean, it's been generations of women. And so it's important to remember what the stream is about and that the ethos and mission of the stream has always been to amplify lesser known voices. So
this is obvious then. You need diversity to book diversity. So if you're watching this show and you think, let's try and see if we can do gender parity in 2020, if you don't have a diverse team, how are they going to do it?
I think you can instantly tell. I'm sure everybody in this room can instantly tell when a story went out or a story was published and there wasn't a woman of color in that room, there wasn't a person of color, there wasn't a woman in the room. Like you can see in the end product when it's all males and it's all white.
And you sometimes see that within our own network. I mean, I'm not going to call anyone out, but there are other discussion programs within the network where often you see a panel of 3 white males. And I think that's very rarely do we ever have that on the stream.
I think I want to jump in here because we're having this great conversation. We're loving it. We think some of our audience members are loving it, but I want to share the people who aren't as much because there's so many comments like this coming to us live on YouTube right now. So I'm going to share a few. Miss Jen Durr says, where are the men on your panel? Another person says, the question does not address why people are on panels. People should be on panels based on their knowledge, not their identity. Several people writing that in. Another person, Tommy, this is the last one I'll read, who says, quality matters, not gender. So this is This is difficult, Sonia. I can see you want to reply to that. What would you say to them? And also maybe talk about the constraints of your job, because you managed to make it diverse even with only 1 or 2 days to book.
Yeah, I was going to say, I mean, those comments are making the assumption that there are not enough qualified women to bring onto this program, which is just untrue. I mean, my process when I'm looking for that voice that is hard to find is, firstly, I consult my colleagues who are all women, and they have an incredible Rolodex of contacts. But then I'm reaching out to the analyst, the expert, the journalist who perhaps isn't a woman, and I'm saying, hey, I need that woman. Can you connect me? And they connect me to one person who connects me to the next until I find that voice. It is possible to find that voice.
It's okay to have an all-male team who are booking guests, but it's not okay to have a team that has a lot of women on it. Why is that an issue?
And the questions, these kinds of questions that are coming up are because when they are looking at the experts that are already speaking on air, most of them are male.
Yeah.
What we're saying is there are people who are not on air right now. These are people who have not been on TV, but they're out there doing the job. Mm-hmm. And so getting those voices out there is important, because the more they see their faces, when we see our faces on air, that's when we have more positive impact, whether it's community, whether it's online, or whether it's industry.
You're engaging the online community and the audience so much more when you have people that are representative of them and their stories. And at the end of the day, that just makes for better journalism.
I have to say thank you so much, because I hear you, Malika and I hear you every day. Tell the guests to act like it's a real conversation, talk to each other, bounce backwards and forwards. You were extraordinary. Thank you very, very much. Alex, back in the control room, great booking.
We should do this more often.
One of the things, or maybe not, one of the things that I feel helps the diversity, and we never talk about it, is this. I'm going to move out the light just slightly to do this, right? We don't talk about it. We don't say, well, I'm a British Nigerian, Chicago, hijab. Like, we don't talk about that, because it's just how we roll on the stream. And the guests feel comfortable, and they feel like they're in a safe space, and they can talk to us about anything. But that is about to change, because this one is leaving the stream. This is what we have to say about it. Take a look.
Fact that social media is making it didn't create these revolutions in
Absolutely.
Tunisia, Egypt, but it is definitely amplifying them. It's giving them a voice.
Stepping into the role of digital producer today is Malika Bilal, who's come all the way from Doha. Malika, welcome. For those who don't know much about you, you're from Chicago, working in Doha. What else do we need to know about you, Malika?
I'm excited to be in DC at the museums and on this couch. So very good to be here.
It's a pilgrimage in itself.
It is, a little bit, yeah. Many one.
Malika Bilal, once again, co-host of Al Jazeera's show, The Stream, the social media stream, and can tell us what's happening out there in what I think they call a blogosphere, don't they?
Blogosphere, Twittersphere. Well, thank you, David. We can't get into the deeper issues of this conversation without you at home. So join the conversation with #AJStream.
Because this is a topic that our community cares about. And so with that, I'm going to share a tweet from one of them. I'm going to give us a little bit of a spicy start.
Hi, I'm Malika Bilal, co-host of The Stream, my favorite show on TV and on the web. And that's because every day I get to come in and speak to the very people that watch our show. That's you, that's our viewers, that's what we call our community.
All this week I'll be coming to you live from the Sundance Film Festival.
This documentary is about progressive women running for office. What do you think that the new wave of progressive young women who entered, like yourself, bring to the table that wasn't there before?
Well, I think it's an entirely new perspective.
Thank you so much, Stanley. I know this has been fantastic.
Oh, you said on them right.
Of course I did. I practiced.
Oh. Good luck, Malika.
We're gonna miss you, man.
We're gonna miss you.
Oh.
Thank you to the Stream team and, of course, to our community. I promised I wasn't going to cry. But this is a show about breaking barriers and doing things you don't normally see on TV, so this is happening. Thank you for allowing me to be a part of your community and for being in your company for these past 8.5 years. I'm not going far. So actually, it's time to smile now. I'm heading down the hall. I'm going to be a part of Al Jazeera's big push into a whole new medium for the channel as host of the podcast, The Take. It's where we're going to give you the story behind the stories that you see on the stream and on the rest of our air. You can join me. Head over to podcast.aljazeera.com, pulled it up here, click on The Take, and then subscribe. We launch in 2020. Until then, Femi and the rest of the stream team will see you online.
That's right. Woo!